You want people to see you. You want them to notice when you walk in, the way you carry yourself, the way you take up space, the way something in the room shifts when you enter. You want that. Don't dress it up. Don't apologize for it. You want to be the man other men measure themselves against without saying a word. That's not vanity. That's standard. But here's the lie you've been living. You want the visibility without doing the invisible work. You want the product without paying the price in the dark. You want the result of a man who stayed when no one was watching. But you've been leaving. You've been cutting sets. You've been negotiating with yourself in the third rep of the fifth set, like your comfort matters more than your character. And nobody saw it. That's the problem. Nobody saw it, so you thought it didn't count. You thought the rep you didn't finish stayed private. You thought the session you skipped was between you and you. It was. That's exactly what makes it lethal. The world doesn't build you. You build you in private, in the dark, in the moments where the only witness is the version of yourself you're either becoming or abandoning. And you've been abandoning him. Not dramatically. Not all at once. You've been doing it quietly, rep by rep, excuse by excuse, in the silence where no one could call you out. That's the lie. That's what we're naming right now. You have been telling yourself that the effort you show in public is who you are. It isn't. The effort you produce when there is no audience, that is who you are. The set no one films. The meal you don't post. The extra mile at 5 a.m. when the street is empty, and the only sound is your breathing and the decision you made before your alarm went off. That is the construction site. That is where the man gets built. And you have not been showing up to the site. Hold that. Don't move past it. Don't let yourself off the hook with, "I've been busy," or "I've been going through something." Those things may be true. They are not excuses. They are conditions. Every man who built something real built it inside conditions that would have stopped someone else. The conditions don't change the standard. The standard is fixed. The question is whether you are moving toward it or negotiating with it. And negotiating with your standard is the beginning of losing yourself, not in some dramatic collapse, but in a slow, invisible erosion that compounds daily. You don't notice it the first week. You don't notice it the second week. By the third week, you've redefined your ceiling as your floor, and you don't even remember doing it. That's how it happens. Not in failure, in acceptance, in the quiet decision to stop pushing against the edge of what you're capable of. You made that decision. You made it in a room with no witnesses. You made it in a gym, on a couch, in the kitchen at midnight, somewhere private, somewhere only you knew what you were choosing. And because nobody saw it, you filed it under irrelevant. It was not irrelevant. It was foundational. Every private surrender compounds. Every quiet concession builds a ceiling. Every time you stopped at comfortable instead of pushing to capable, you installed another limit you now have to dismantle. That is the cost of the dark work you didn't do. The bill doesn't come when you skip a session. The bill comes when you're standing in a moment that requires the man you were supposed to be building, and you reach for him. And he's not there. He's not there because you were comfortable. He's not there because you decided that not being watched meant not being accountable. He's not there because you confused privacy with permission. Now we pivot, not away from the weight of that, through it. Here's what is also true. The man you want to be is not a fantasy. He is a construction. He is being built or he is being abandoned. And the only tool that builds him is the work no one sees. Not the PR you post, not the before and after, the session where nothing went right and you stayed anyway, the morning where you wanted to quit in the warm-up and you didn't, the night where you had every reasonable justification to skip and you showed up to an empty gym and did the work in silence. That is not discipline. Discipline is what you call it when you're trying to convince yourself. That is identity. That is who you are when you stop performing and start existing as the man you decided to become. That decision lives in private. It gets made in dark rooms, in cold mornings, in the space between wanting to stop and choosing not to. And that decision, made in private, repeated in private, compounded in private, is what eventually creates the man that people see in public and cannot explain. They can't explain him because they didn't see the construction. They only see the structure. They see the way he moves with certainty. They see the weight he carries without showing it. They see the stillness in him, the kind of stillness that only comes from a man who has been tested in private and didn't flinch. That stillness is not a personality trait. It is a training result. It is what happens when a man decides, in the dark, with no audience, to hold his standard, and holds it again, and holds it when it costs him something, and holds it when no one would ever know if he let it go. Your reputation is the shadow your private work casts in public. You don't control your reputation directly. You control your conduct in the dark, and your reputation follows. It has no choice. The man who trains like someone is always watching, even when the gym is empty, even when he's the only one in the building. That man walks into rooms differently. Not because he rehearsed it, not because he's performing confidence, because his body knows what his mind committed to in private. His nervous system has been trained by thousands of decisions made without an audience. He doesn't have to remember to stand straight. He stands straight because standing straight is the output of a man who didn't let himself fold when folding was free. That's what you're building. Not aesthetics, architecture, not a body for display, a character built for load-bearing, something that can hold weight when the weight is real, when it's not iron plates, but pressure, when it's not a bench press, but a decision that matters. The man who built himself in the dark doesn't crack under that. Not because he's special, because he trained for it, in private, repeatedly, without applause. This is what the dark work does. It doesn't just build muscle. It builds the capacity to be the man the moment requires. The moment nobody scripted. The moment that arrives without warning and demands everything you have. And everything you have is everything you put in the dark, when it was optional, when no one would have known if you didn't. You either made those deposits or you didn't, and the account either has what the moment needs or it doesn't. There is no credit in this bank. You either built it or you didn't. You either showed up when no one was watching, or you're standing there broke when the moment demands everything. So, what happens now is simple, not easy, simple. You go back into the dark, not for anyone else, not for the post, not for the number on the scale, not for the comment section. You go back into the dark because that is where the real construction happens, and you have been absent from the site long enough. You do the set, no one's filming. You do the extra rep after your brain says done. You stay in the gym, past the point of comfort, past the point of performance, into the territory that only a man who is serious ever reaches. The part of the session where it costs something real, and you pay it anyway. You eat the meal that serves the goal instead of the one that serves the mood. You sleep when sleeping is the work. You rest when rest is productive. And you push when pushing is required. And you learn the difference, not from someone telling you, but from being honest with yourself in private, because you already know the difference. You know when you're recovering and when you're hiding. You know when you're listening to your body and when you're listening to your comfort. The dark is where you stop pretending you don't know. It's where you operate on what you actually know instead of what's convenient. Every rep in that territory, the dark territory, the honest territory, is a brick. And the man being built out of those bricks is not a version of you that other people will describe as impressive. He is a version of you that other people will not have words for. They will feel him before they understand him. They will know something is different before they can name it. And they will never know why. Because they weren't there. They didn't see the sessions. They didn't see the mornings. They didn't see the private decision made in the dark to not stop, to not negotiate, to not reduce the standard, because reducing it was free and no one was counting. You were counting. That's the point. You are always the witness to your own construction. You are always the one who knows what the standard was and whether you met it. You can fool everyone else. You cannot fool that. You cannot unsee the set you cut. You cannot unfeel the session you skipped. It lives in you, not as guilt, as data. Your body keeps the score, and your character keeps the score, and the man you are becoming keeps the score, and the score is honest, even when you are not. So, be honest now, in the dark, in the private reckoning that no one else is part of. Ask yourself not whether you worked hard enough in public. Ask yourself what you did when no one would have known. Ask yourself what your standard looked like at 5 a.m. when it was cold and optional. Ask yourself what you did in the last set of the last exercise when the only thing stopping you from quitting was the man you decided you were going to be. And then go be that man, not tomorrow, not when conditions improve. Now, in the dark, in the session that doesn't matter to anyone watching, because no one is watching, which means it is the only one that matters. The only version of you that is real is the one you build in private. Everything else is presentation. The man in the light is just the man from the dark, shown. What you do when no one is watching is not preparation for who you'll become. It is who you are.